Today what I thought I'd do is I would show you my crochet journal. Remember, if you like crochet, if you like art, if you like thrifting, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, hit notifications. I upload every Sunday. So I had this comment and it was asking me to do a video about how I keep my crochet journals. What I thought I'd do in today's video is just show you everything about my crochet journal from 2024 and show you a bit of the setup for 2025. What I'm going to try to aim to do this year when I'm making crochet journals is show you my crochet page and what I'm actually doing and the setup of how I plan out my crochet. I think keeping a journal is really important, not just for diary making, but if you are a creative person, if you have a creative practice. So you have this way of documenting your practice and showing how you've got from A to B. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a traditional way, in a book. You could literally just keep some of your stuff on a notepad in your phone. You could have a page on an iPad, anything. There's so many different ways that you can keep journals, even just like Google Docs. Just writing down your thoughts and your workings out, because it's a really great way of learning how you progress with something. It's a really great way of understanding your practice. So let's get on to looking at the book. So this is the second time of me filming this. The first attempt, unfortunately, half of the audio didn't upload properly. So we are going to go through this book together. For me, it's the second time. It might be your first time. I know a few people did watch the video and I'm really, really grateful for everybody who got in touch and told me about the problems. Right. Let's get on and have a look at this book. So this is my 2024 crochet journal. This is how I'm documenting my progress. So I'm going to open the page. Just got a little thing here because I've got some personal information. Now, I found this actually came when I ordered a bunch of cedar wool. I absolutely love the jewel spun cedar wool. So every time I look at that and I open it up, it's so inspiring. This is a little sticker from a crochet club called the Cozy Fox. I think it's called the Cozy Fox Crochet Club. It's a Liverpool-based crochet club. Follow them on Instagram. They are absolutely amazing. And they have these little stickers. This, again, was just, I think I got this from a wool shop down in, I think it was down in Bath, I think. But just thought, really, really inspiring. Turning over to the next page. That is just a blank page there. This is my contents. So I need to continue filling this in because I have filled this in a little bit more. It's practically fallen apart. It actually got soaked at the start of the year and half the pages ended up falling out. So a lot of these are just kind of being held together with masking tape and with sellotape. But this is how I'm kind of keeping track of where all the bits that I've been making. So here was the projects that I hadn't completed in 2023. And my planner for the month. So I thought it was a really good idea to have a year spread where I could write down bits and bobs, projects that I wanted to do, trying to give myself that forward thinking. This was the first project of the year, a wearable scarf. I had watched, there was an amazing program and it was the TV version of Willow. It was like a sequel. Unfortunately, it's not on Disney Plus anymore. And Alora Dannon had this amazing wearable sort of garment, this like knitted garment, and thought, oh my gosh, I want one of those. It didn't go to plan and I ended up frogging the entire thing. So I've now got loads of this gorse wool. This is a Highland Heathers. I love Highland Heathers wools, but you all know that if you watch my videos. Highland Heathers gorse is my absolute favourite. So how I'm doing this is I'm writing down like what I want. I saw that this a pattern on Pinterest. I wrote down the sleeve information, the wool, the hook that I was using, trying to keep all of that information. So one of my goals this year was to complete a Tunisian crochet project, and I absolutely loved making this. I found it quite difficult because obviously when you're trying something new, it is hard. And I followed Tony from TL Yarn Crafts, I mentioned her in my previous video. And what I did was I actually wrote down the link to the actual video as well. So again, in the future, if I want to go and reference this, I have that direct link that I can type in. Also, again, writing down the wool that I used and also the hook size. I think what was in my head is I was going to have this wearable scarf, and then I was also going to have this headband that was going to be matching this wearable scarf. Here, this is my little boy's crochet blanket. I have got my little boy and I have two nieces, and when I was pregnant I began this, and when my sister was pregnant I began my two nieces as well. Two nieces blankets. So this is Jackson's blanket, and each year I try to add a little bit more to it. So every birthday trying to add a little bit more. So one day he's just going to have this giant crochet blanket. I'm actually stood on my tippy toes holding this up. Now this snood, this was started back in January of 2023. I was on jewelry service and I just wanted something that was going to keep my mind occupied. And this really did keep my mind occupied. I used a different stitch for every single row pretty much. You can see I had popcorn, I was using doubles, I was doing back post, front post, half double crochets. I was just trying to make this feel as textured as possible. And I ended up making it really large, so it was like a giant big hood. What I don't like about this is I kind of wish that I'd put like a type of pull so I could kind of pull that hood close. So that's something that I might add to this later in the year. My sister wanted me to make a snood as well for my niece Clara. Unfortunately, we didn't start that. Don't know why, but we just didn't. So next page. Crochet ideas. So this is basically like a collage, some writing of different things that I wanted to try. I absolutely love this. This might be something that I revisit this year. What I've been looking at recently is plants, crochet flowers. I was doing a lot of crochet flowers in 2022. But I love the idea of a house plant, and imagine making a pot in these kind of colours so it looks like a china bowl to put your lovely flowers or plant into. So that might be something I revisit this year. Also, this is something that I did trial, which I'll talk about in a few moments. Now, another thing that I think is really important when you practice any kind of creative art is to look at other artists and see what they are doing and talk about their practice, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And I found this artist and just thought her work is absolutely amazing. I love these little appliques that she's done, and I have a plan for this year that I am going to try and make an arrangement basically inspired by her and frame it up. It's just another way of using that crochet that's not just making a garment, making a hat, making a bag. It's something that's more of like a decorative art, kind of leaning into more of like the flowers again. Something that you can decorate your home with rather than just the standard things that you think of when you think of a fibre art. Another thing that I think is also really important when you're looking at artists is finding direct quotes. You're literally hearing their words, what they feel and what that craft means to them. So looking for different quotes from that artist, what you like about them, what you don't like about them, a bit of history on their work. I think that's really important for creative thinking. This is my tarot wraps. I was selling a lot of these at crochet fairs along with matching little crystal bags as well. Now, this is just, again, it was a rough plan because I hadn't actually, when I was doing this, I hadn't thought about keeping a crochet journal. So when I went to recreate it, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually don't know what I'm doing. And it really drives home just keeping a note, the briefest of notes, how many rows you're doing, what stitch you used, what hook you used, what wool you were using. Even if it's as brief as that, I think it's really, really worth just keeping a little document of it. These here, these charms, I actually bought these off Amazon. These are little tarot cards that I attached to the end of the tie, and I was able to kind of bring it round and wrap those tarot wraps up, and I just think it was a really, really nice little addition. This crochet heart pattern, I got this on Pinterest. It's a free pattern. Again, what I've done is I've wrote down that website, so if I need to revisit this, I can go look, but obviously I have that pattern there. For Christmas, I've made my friend Nat a pair of bright pink mittens, and what I did was I made this as an applique and stitched it on, and they were absolutely beautiful. But this would actually make a really lovely Valentine's Day project if you were going to stitch it onto something. Now, this is a pattern from a creator called Michelle Jasic. She is one of my favourite YouTubers. She's Canadian. She's absolutely amazing. And she does a lot of tapestry work. And she is really the reason why I ended up pushing myself to do tapestry work. This was a pattern that I was going to make for my husband. It's I Think You Should Leave tote bag. So the program I Think You Should Leave, it's absolutely hilarious. And there is a sketch where it's like 55 burgers. And she made a tote that listed all of the different foods that he was asking for. And she made a tote out of it. Go and check out her channel, Michelle Jasic. It's absolutely hilarious. I downloaded her Patreon, subscribed to it, and that is just the pattern that I've stuck in my book there. Crochet bag, right, okay. So this crochet bag, this really pushed my limits, really, to be honest with you. The pattern is very, very much like this. But the colours that I chose, I have no idea where I've put. In the original video, I had some footage, which I'll try and insert here. The colours that I chose to make this, oh my goodness, it looked absolutely crazy. But the actual design itself was lovely, so it will be something that I do revisit. But, oh, I absolutely hated it. But I was enjoying the process. It's very, very intricate. You have to think a lot. It's not something that you can just kind of switch off while you're making, because each row is absolutely different. But it looks absolutely beautiful. What I've done is I've gone to Hobbycraft, which is kind of like a bit, if you're not from the UK, it's a big craft superstore, like, you know, your Joann's or your Michael's or your Hobby Lobby, like something like that. And I bought a tote bag, like a canvas bag. And I just had this idea of like, oh, it would be so cool to basically make this amazing crochet, kind of Persian crochet tile sort of style to stitch on the front. I thought it'd look absolutely amazing. Something that I will revisit. Here is my jewel spun blanket. Now, for Christmas 2023, my mum and dad got me absolutely loads of the Cedar jewel spun in chunky. I love this wool. I mean, I said it at the start. That is the wool that is there. And the colours that I used were Precious, Topaz and Emerald. And I was just going around and around in a big rectangle. And when I got to the end, I began to add pony beads. So I'm going to show you the blanket actually. So here is the blanket. This is keeping me so warm because right now, currently where I am in the UK, it is absolutely Baltic and it is snowing. But you can see the pony beads between these. Oh, it makes it so weighted, but also just having that little bit of extra texture. This blue, this was actually given to me by a work colleague. His wife is really into knitting and she just had loads of wool that she was getting rid of. And it was like all odds and ends. And I had this in my stash for about 2 years. And it just was so perfect in this project. It looks so nice because there's so many blues and it's a really deep blue. It's more of a reddy blue rather than a greeny blue. Now the colours here, you've got this purple. That purple, let me see if I can find it. It's called Sweet Pea. And the green is called Sea Breeze. I got these from John Lewis. Absolutely stunning. It's such a nice, like a nice wool. Very, very chunky. I'm not really a chunky wool kind of person, to be honest. I'm more of a DK. And I quite like working with quite thin yarns. So working with chunky was not something that I'd done since I began crocheting. So Halloween jumpers. My year from about July was solely taken up with making Halloween jumpers. The previous year, Michelle Jasic had uploaded a video making, let me just cover this up because this is actually her pattern that she put on here. Patreon. So this is the jumper that she made, and I thought, you know what? I tried doing tapestry crochet and it just went so wrong. And the reason why it went wrong is because I was using a grid, like squares, and I did it in a double crochet, so the pattern ended up being really, really stretched, and it really kind of knocked my confidence. But I thought, you know what, when I seen this design, I was like, oh, I have to try it again. Subscribed to her Patreon because of this pattern, downloaded it, and I made a panel. And I thought, right, I've done the panel, I'm confident, I'm going to work in a round, and I'm going to attach that panel that I've done to the round. When I went to attach that to the round, it wasn't matching up. And this is when it's really important to make sure that you're writing down what you're doing. Because what I had done is I'd made that panel, I'd made that with a 5mm hook. So I knew I'd done single crochets. And when I went to attach the top part, that round that I'd done, to the body, it wasn't lining up because I'd used a 4mm hook, and I could not figure out for the life of me why it wasn't matching, why it wasn't adding up. I was trying all different types of stitches and it wasn't working and it didn't look right. But in the end, I ended up sort of changing it and making another one and making this into a jumper for Jackson. And he absolutely loves this jumper. It's so cozy and warm, and it kept him warm on some of those little Halloween autumnal walks that we were doing. But this year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish that panel. Now I know it was a 5mm hook, and I'm going to make myself a jumper that matches this one. Now, I did try to make myself a jumper that matched this one pretty much afterwards. This is the 12th of August. So pretty much for about 3 weeks, I was making this round in single crochets. So just think about that, right? Look how much work that is. Single crochets. It was just going on forever and ever and ever. And what I'd done, instead of just working it like a square round, I was working in a circle, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to do prep for a further project, which is this one, which I'll talk about in a few moments. But it just went absolutely wrong. It looked like I was wearing an umbrella. I just wasn't measuring it right. We went camping. I took it with me. I wasn't trying things as I was going. It was becoming really just a meditative act. Now, this is the panel, the original panel with the 5mm. And it's just, I just put a pause on it and was like, right, I'm just going to move on to something else, because this is taking up my sort of mind for more than a month. And it was all I was thinking about. So, next page, the pumpkin jumper. This is the thing that I am so proud of this year. I am absolutely so proud of myself. I can't wait till this Halloween so I can wear it again. I am so happy with it. Now, the story of this is when I began crocheting, I do what most people do. They go on Pinterest and they're looking at all these different things. And this popped up, this picture. And it's a knitted design. And I was just so in awe of it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's knitted. I'm never going to have the skill to make something like that. Now, I went online to see if I could buy the pattern. And when I clicked on the link that I saved, I couldn't actually get to that pattern. I don't know whether it's because it's so old, I'm not too sure. Whether the link was bad, I don't know. But I couldn't get to that original pattern. So I was thinking, if I buy that pattern, maybe there's like a grid like this that I could try and like adapt in crochet. But I thought, right, I'll just try and figure it out myself. So this is the little grid that I drew. I worked in a circle. So you can kind of see where I'm trying to like work things out. At first, I was like, do I have to do it kind of increasing each one? But what I did was I basically made my round, got to the point where the round was done, and then just worked instead of increasing each row. I just stopped doing that. So here is the jumper. This is where it was kind of half done. I got to this black line, and that is where I'd stopped increasing. And here is what it looks like when it's completed, and that's when it ends up being stitched. Now you can see there is a slight colour difference. Now, we go on about dye lots, don't we? We talk about dye lots. These were the same dye lot. These were the exact same dye lot. And I don't know whether it was because the shop that I was in didn't have windows. I was in John Lewis where I was buying. This is the Hayfield soft twist yarn. The green is olive. Love this wool. The black, that's just black, and then copper. And this lime colour, which I think is more of a chartreuse, is lime. I absolutely love that. I think it's so beautiful. But yeah, you can see the difference in that dye lot, which is really, really strange. But I don't really care. It's still my favourite jumper. This was another thing that went absolutely wrong. I got this picture off Pinterest and then I turned it into a grid pattern. I love this so much, but oh my goodness, I think after coming from this and then the mistakes from this and going straight into this, my brain was like mashed potato. I just couldn't focus and I was making so many mistakes. I was also working in a round as well. I think that was a big mistake. I'm going to tackle this again this year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a panel and do it that way and stop putting so much pressure on myself. I think I'm also going to be using multiple bobbins so I'm not having to carry that wool across. I think that will help out a lot. These are all, the purple is Bonus DK. The Hayfield Bonus DK. This is also this neon green is the Hayfield Bonus DK, and that black is just the Home Bargains wool. Home Bargains is just a discount store here in the UK if you're not from the UK. So that is something that I was trying to make for Red, and I have a very understanding husband. He was very, very nice about it and was just telling me to calm down and that it'd all be fine. But yeah, I'm going to try and tackle this again next year. So this is actually... I stuck in these little swatches of the Highland Heather. I went to Bygone Times, which is a really big warehouse. This warehouse is like just full of all different individual sellers that sell antiques. And I saw this jumper and it wasn't my size and I absolutely loved it and thought, you know what, I want to do something in those patterns. So this year, this is something that I'm going to try and work on. I'm not too sure what kind of pattern I want, but what I did was I glued these in and then I took this book to the wool shop with me. So I had my little swatches so I could kind of add up where I wanted these wools and kind of find the correct palette. This page here, I'm working out something that I wanted to try and make, but Halloween just ended up just going past me and I moved on to working on my crochet blanket. But this is probably an idea that I'll take into this Halloween. But it's a great place to talk about why I use dotted pages. Dotted pages are great rather than a plain background. The dots, if you want to write, your writing's going to be all in a neat line. If you want to draw out grids, if you're doing tapestry work, you can draw out your grids, or you can just draw your diagrams and it doesn't really matter because it's just dots on the page. I just think dotted notebooks are so good and I can't rave enough about them. So this here, you will have seen these pages before. This is my 30 minutes for 30 days charity project. I have a whole video series. I've actually got that in a playlist. So I'll just talk briefly about it. Here are my little swatches. I used the Women's Institute wool. You can buy this at Hobbycraft. It's absolutely lovely. It's so soft. The colours that I used were cream, mustard, rust, orange and brown. I've actually taken here the wrappers and I've cut out those names, those shade colours, and also what you'll see on there is also the dye lots as well. Here as well, I cut out the washing instructions, so if I ever need to wash the blanket, I've still got those instructions, and obviously just the Women's Institute wool if I ever want to definitely reference that. Wrote down a bit of information there. This is my workings out. This is what I was proposing that I was going to make. Oh, I ended up using a knit craft by Hobbycraft as well. Just saw that in the middle because I've obviously got this here. That wool, I don't know whether anyone's used it. I was so disappointed in it. I was so disappointed. The colour was absolutely stunning. It's a cheap wool. It's got, you know, loads of different colours. They're only tiny little, they're only 50 grams. So they're kind of good for like small projects, but I was like unraveling the wool and like the glue from the wrapper was stuck to the wool itself. The wool was like knotted and shredded in bits, which I talked about in the videos, but yeah, I was quite disappointed about that. Obviously it's their cheap range. You can't expect sort of high quality, but you know, I was just still a little bit miffed by that. I think it's worth mentioning. So this is what I was proposing. It's not what I ended up doing. here is some of actually what I ended up creating. And here is a bit on the edging and what I actually used, what kind of pattern I used to do that edging. I love this edging, and I think I'm going to try and bring this into a garment. I think it would look really nice on the bottom of a jumper. Now, these are some ideas for some colour combinations as well. And here is a bit of feedback on how I thought the project went. I think it's really important when you're creating, whether that's painting, whether that's crochet, whether that's knitting, embroidery, woodwork, any kind of creative process, reflect on what you've done. Talk about what went well. Talk about what didn't go well. Because if you're thinking and reflecting and you're trying to analyse what you were doing, that's how you learn and that's how you progress. Here are just some pages where these are things that I did make, where I'm just going to add in pictures at a later date because I don't have time to write down what I was doing. It was getting to the end of the year and you just wanting to make something, and it wasn't like major projects. And here is where we get to the star on top of the tree. Now with these pages, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to take photos of the items and just pop them in there. I'm probably not going to write a pattern this year. Apart from trying not to spend lots and lots of money, another one of my goals is to try to document as much as I can. Just try to just get everything into the books, just so I can remember the things that I'm working on. So, star on top of the tree, this was a video that I made during December. I really didn't like the topper that I had for my Christmas tree, so I crocheted one. I will be writing a pattern for this to put on my website eventually. Probably won't be till next year. So if you want to make that before Christmas, here we go. You can pause this video, and if you can read my writing, Godspeed. This page as well as the next page. This is where I was making the points of the star, and I'm quite a visual learner. So these little diagrams are really important. I always like sit there and scribble and try to imagine what is actually going to be, you know, coming together on the page and trying to bring that together in real life. Now, here is my plans from 2024 going into 2025. These are some of the things that I want to be working on. So a green raglan, I'm currently working on that. I've been putting updates on TikTok, but there will be a full YouTube video on how I'm actually working on that. Now this marble raglan, marble is the type of wool that I'm using. It's really, really beautiful. I haven't made a video on this yet though. So this Bygone Times jumper, that is those swatches that I took earlier in the book. See if I can put them. Here we are. So these little swatches here. So that is something that I'm going to be working on this year. I've not really planned out when. So Red's pumpkin jumper, this is something that I'm going to be definitely working on this year. I owe Red a Halloween jumper most definitely. And I also want to do him a Frankenstein jumper as well. So here I've just separated this page into different months. So it's a spread of 1 year. Green raglan, that's at the top. I've got my Valentine's Day bag that I'd like to make as well. A crochet case, Frankenstein jumper, pumpkin jumper. And then I can also just be making notes. So if I want to flip and see what I've actually made this year, I can just turn to this page and I can have a look. I hope that you've enjoyed going through the crochet journal with me, and I hope that I've inspired you to start your own crochet journal or just any kind of practice, any kind of creative practice. Keeping a journal. I hope that I've inspired you to do that. I hope that you tune in for future videos so you can see me getting this completed and getting this filled up. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.